Wretch is a character I created a long time ago now, 1993, I think. And it was just a way for me to, I really wanted to experiment with storytelling. And the Wretch was sort of this vehicle, since he's a mute character. And he's a weird little creepy superhero. And he guards a weird creepy little town in the Midwest. And I really wanted a character that had to speak through his movements and his actions. And so I created a character that was basically a silhouette, and his body movements were his speech. And I just threw every weird, wacky idea that I had, and had the Wretch fight that weird, wacky idea. And we were lucky enough that we got nominated for an Eisner, and sort of gave the character new life. And in the end, we did. I think we did, probably 12 issues worth of material about the Wretch. And surprisingly, people still come up to me today and ask me about it, which blows my mind. What's funny about the Wretch is that different people come up to me and say, that's my favorite Wretch story. Almost nobody says the same story. My favorite as a storyteller was the story called Snow. And it was about interracial couple, young couple, and about the father of the girl who kills the black man because he doesn't want his daughter dating him. And the Wretch shows up at the murder scene and creates a snowman and takes the engagement ring from the dead body and puts it in the snowman as its heart. And then the snowman, of course, comes back to terrorize the man who killed him. But the daughter's love actually melts the snowman, and then you see that the man who was killed is still alive inside. And they run off and live happily ever after. And the man who shot the black man in the first place is cold for the rest of his life. And that's sort of the Wretch. There's little fairy tales like that, but they have a sinister edge. And the Wretch is never a main character. He's an element in those stories, but he's never the main character. And in the story I just described, he brought the snowman to life and then walked away, and everything else took place without the Wretch in it. So that's the kind of stories that you can't really tell in a mainstream comic, and you can't really tell with a normal character. And that's the fun of working on the Wretch. I've been drawing comics for 20 years. I've been drawing them since I was in college. But I always felt like I was a writer. I was also a writer of comics. It's just that my drawing professionally got out ahead of my writing, and people knew me as an artist. But I always felt like, even when I was drawing, I was writing with the pictures. And to me, the Wretch was an extension of that. It was a chance to really, my heroes are like Frank Miller and Will Eisner and Steve Ditko, great storytellers, Bernie Kriegsteen. And so the Wretch was sort of my attempt, a failed attempt, but it was my attempt to storytell like those guys storytold, to let the pictures do the work. And it's one of the most satisfying experiences of my career. And if people had bought it in any decent numbers, I'd still be doing it. But I still like to do that. I still come back to that character once in a while for short stories. The Wretch is sort of a cipher for any sort of story I want to tell. So I could tell a story about, I really love Jack Kirby and Jim Steranko, and I really wanted to do a far out space opera kind of story. So I created a character that was a tribute to that sort of stuff and had him come to Earth and fight the Wretch. Even though the Wretch is just this creepy little squirrely hero, he stood up to this Galactus kind of character. And at the same time, I can do a horror story and throw the Wretch in it. So, he's all purpose, and that's why that's probably why I'll never ever totally quit working on the character, because he was so good for that sort of thing.